Hello everyone, welcome to this analysis on why the Midwest will be the one to decide the 2024 US presidential election. More specifically, why Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are the three true swing states of this election. Alright, so we're going to start with first what we consider or might consider a swing state and what the media has dubbed swing states. So the first criterion that states had to meet is in the 2020 presidential election, the margin between Trump and Biden had to be less than 3 points. You can see the 7 states on the left that meet it: Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan, and North Carolina. North Carolina is the only one here that went Republican, as you can see, and we'll delve more into why I think North Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia will all be going Republican in 2024. But with some analysis at the end of the video, you'll see even if this all doesn't happen, why Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan will still end up deciding this upcoming election. But before we get into the analysis, let's get some of my sources out of the way. So basically all of my polling statistics are taken from 538, which is like the most reputable polling source. The composite polls are from Trump versus Biden right now, which is basically when 538 takes all the reputable polls that they see and then combine them. And the reason is because there aren't enough Trump versus Harris polls yet to make this composite. However, I do also have a lot of individual Trump versus Harris polls that I reference, as long as they were enlisted on 538 and they have more than 800 registered voters that we're taking a survey of. As you can see, I also have some pictures of swings with children on them on the slide, not only because these are swing states and polling has been swinging wildly recently, but also because I think childish is a pretty good representation of our current state of politics, honestly, not only in our country, but around the world. But maybe it seems to be getting better. Hopefully that continues. Sorry for that aside. Let's get back into the actual analysis. So I'll start with why I believe both Nevada and Arizona will go red in 2024. And the reason I've grouped these together is because they are the two they're the two like swing states that are quote unquote border states, or at least Nevada is very close to it. And they have very similar reasons for why they will be going Republican, at least I think, in 2024. So let's start by looking at some polls. Once again, the 538 composite against Biden. Trump is plus 5.8 in Nevada and 5.5 in Arizona. Now, if we look at some more individual polls between Trump and Harris specifically, one taken on July 15th through 16th, Trump was plus 10. However, a much more recent poll found on July 22nd through 24th when it was taken, Trump was only plus 2 against Harris, showing a pretty narrow margin. When we look at Arizona, you can see against Harris we have plus 3, plus 6, plus 8, all polled between July 22nd and 24th. So clearly a wide variety, and honestly, these polling numbers, they tell us some stuff, but we'll just have to wait till there's more concrete polling numbers once the composite can be formed. But now let's get into the substantive reasons of why I think voters aren't likely to switch from, or voters aren't likely, who weren't likely to vote for Biden will vote for Harris, why I don't think there will be many in Nevada or Arizona, whereas there will be a lot more in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So the main reason for this is because Harris was given responsibility for the border by Biden, right? So she was responsible for the border. That was one of her responsibilities as vice president. And a Bloomberg or Morning Consult poll found that 86% of voters in the upcoming election see immigration as an important issue. Specifically in Arizona and Nevada, 25% of voters see immigration as the most important issue. In Nevada, this number is 21%. When we look at Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, it's 16%, 14%, and 13%. There's a clear disparity in these numbers. It's clear these voters care a lot more about the border and immigration in Arizona and Nevada, which makes sense since they're border states. Additionally, when we look at how much voters trust Trump versus Biden on the border and immigration, once again, there are no polls for Trump versus Harris, but we can certainly expect Republicans to paint a picture of Harris as being responsible for the border. So when we look at this, and Republicans do group Harris with Biden, like because it was their administration, when we look at the trust in the border in Pennsylvania, it's a 14-point difference. 50% trust Trump, 36% trust Biden. In Nevada, though, it's 57% who trust Trump and just 28% who trust Biden more. Just clear representation for these border states where immigration is extremely much more important than Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin. It's clear that with Harris given responsibility for the border by Biden, these voters who see immigration as the most important, which is a large percent, aren't likely to vote for Harris instead of Biden. All right, so that's the case for why Nevada and Arizona are likely to go Republican, largely boils down to the border. Next, let's move on to the case against Georgia and North Carolina. So once again, let's look at the numbers again. This slide, is formatted a bit differently. Georgia's on the left, North Carolina on the right. So Trump is plus 5.9 in Georgia against Biden and plus 6.9 in North Carolina against Biden. When we look at the polls against Harris, it is a smaller margin in both states, plus 2, plus 3, plus 5 in Georgia, and just plus 3 and plus 4 against Harris, or in North Carolina. But let's first focus on Georgia. So Georgia, I believe, has seen a rightward shift since the 2020 election. Stacey Abrams, the leading Democrat in Georgia, has done a great job to mobilize Democratic voters, but it seems like some of her momentum might be halted. I think the most clear is when we look at the Georgia governor election. In 2018, Kemp ran against Abrams and won by just 1.4 points. And I mean, this made waves all across the country. It's what made Georgia a true swing state, and Democrats have Abrams to thank for that. Unfortunately for her, in 2022, Kemp won by 7.5 points against Abrams. And Kemp made the race about what Biden was doing nationally a lot of and pinned it on Democrats and Abrams. Considering Harris is a part of the Biden administration, if this is what Georgian voters care about, it's not likely that they'll switch over to Harris instead. Furthermore, we can see that in the 2020 presidential election, college campuses really carried Biden. When you look at Fulton County, where Georgia Tech is, and Clark County, where University of Georgia is, both for 40-plus point victories in these counties for Biden. Yet recently, as we all know, protests have rocked campus all around the country, Georgia and Georgia Tech being no different, in relation to the Israel-Gaza war. And unless there's a resolution soon, I mean, there's definitely a world where progressive voters are less likely to vote for Harris as they protest against this war. So if these young voters aren't turning out for Harris, of course, that's a large problem for her. But I think, once again, the most convincing evidence is the Kemp and Abrams difference that really shows that perhaps Georgia cares more about what's happening nationally and is going right. Granted, for both Georgia and North Carolina, I think the chance that these go blue are higher than Nevada and Arizona, and I could still see it happening. I just don't think it's extremely likely. Moving to North Carolina, we can see so Raleigh, Durham, Cary, these are where like the large universities such as UNC and Duke and are. A large reason why North Carolina has shifted from pretty safe red to more of a swing state is because these counties or cities, areas have experienced a plus 5.6% growth, and this has allowed many more young voters to the area, who of course are more likely to vote Democratic. Also, of the 900,000 people to move into North Carolina recently, apparently 90% were people of color, with the most people come from California, New York, and New England states being the largest source of migration. Obviously, people of color are more likely to vote Democratic, as are California, New York, New England states are usually Democratic. By the way, all these numbers are from the Brookings Institution. There will be a link in the description for that, for the numbers from North Carolina. However, the reason that I think this won't matter as much is because African Americans are starting to shift right. We see that in polls where more are likely to vote for Trump in 2024 than 2020. So this mitigates some of all the people of color moving into North Carolina. Secondly, is once again, young voters are disillusioned over Gaza. So even though you have all this growth in these near college campuses, that would be great for previous elections, but it might not be as good for 2024. Additionally, this growth was all from 2010 to 2020, and it has seemed to slow down a bit leading up to the 2024 election, which is why I think at least Democrats' momentum here will be slowed. All right, now we're going to take a quick pause for some trivia and have some fun. So a quirky little stat is that there are 2 states that can give out electoral votes that aren't winner-take-all. Which are they? Well, if you answered A, Maine and Nebraska, you are correct. So a little bit of background information. It's like, so the winner, like all-out winner in Maine and Nebraska will get 1 electoral vote, but then the rest are based on who wins the majority in a congressional district. And in the upcoming 2024 presidential election, it's expected that while Nebraska is heavily Republican, Harris will pick up a vote in Nebraska, while Maine is Democratic. Trump will pick up an electoral vote in Maine because of this quirky system, so it does end up evening out. But that's just an interesting little fact. Alright, next, let's move on to the case for the Midwest and why these are truly swing states. So one thing to keep in mind, the last time Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan didn't all vote for the same presidential candidate was in 1988. So in the modern era of politics, they've always been together. So we'll keep that in mind. That'll be important for the next slide when we look at some math. So let's start with Wisconsin. Trump was a plus 2.3 composite against Biden, a much smaller margin. And 4 recent polls between Harris and Trump, one showed Harris leading by 2 points, one showed her down by 1 point, and 2 showed her in a dead heat with Trump. These are much closer than the other states, which all still had Trump in the lead. We see the same pattern in Pennsylvania, where while Trump is plus 4.4 against Biden in the composite, in 3 polls, he's all plus 2 against Harris. But then you have 3 polls where Harris is plus 2, plus 1, and 1 where she's in a dead heat with Trump. The Shapiro number we'll come back to. Next, in Michigan, Trump was plus 2.4 against Biden in the composite, but against Harris, he was just plus 2, and then 2, he was in a dead heat. And once again, the Whitmer number we'll come back to. In fact, we'll do that right now. So while there were talks that Biden might drop out, some polling stations took polls of prospective Democratic candidates to replace Biden, which include Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And these are 2 leading candidates as Harris's vice presidential pick. And polls found Shapiro up by 10 points against Trump, and 6 points for Whitmer against Trump in Michigan. It's fair to think if Harris picks Shapiro in Pennsylvania or Whitmer in Michigan, this will instantly cause her to have a large boost because these are 2 very popular governors and give her one of these states right away. Additionally, because these are popular moderate governors in the Midwest, we can also see it could definitely help her chances in the other 2 Midwest states as well. Now, let's move on to more of the demographics of these states. They are Rust Belt states, meaning they are large manufacturing industries, and they are 3 of the top 10 states in the number of manufacturing jobs. And some of the top 10, like you got California, Texas, New York, obviously those are huge populations. When we look at per capita, these 3 states rank even higher. So they have large manufacturing industries, right? The backbone of American workers. And this means they also have a lot of unions in the area, and unions, of course, have been a huge fight recently. Yet Harris has picked up endorsements from the Construction Workers Union and the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, among others. And we all know about Sean O'Brien making the speech at the RNC and potentially making one at the DNC, and that Teamsters endorsement could carry a lot of weight with unions. The fact of the matter is Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan have very different demographics since they have so many manufacturing jobs, which honestly, especially unions, have often gone Democratic, but have started to shift Republican a little bit. So this is why these are the 3 swing states, as we can also see by the polls, that are the most important. Alright, now let's get into some math. Oh, sorry, it looks like my slides were glitching a bit, but with the math, we can see that currently Harris is projected to have 226. If she wins Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, then she will have 270 votes on the dot, right? So when we look at it that way, 19 plus 15 plus 10 is 44 plus 226. That's 270 on the dot. That's how much you need to win. However, if, let's say, Harris were to win Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, but lose Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, that's still a Republican victory. So that means that Harris would need to win all 4 of Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina in order for Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania not to matter. This is because we're assuming Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania will all vote for the same presidential candidate, as they've done since 1988. So when you group this together, this means all 4 of these states would have to vote for Biden, would have to vote for Harris, which seems very unlikely, especially considering that North Carolina went red in 2020. And many of these states show Trump with a sizable 3-4 point lead in the polls right now. On the other hand, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the polls are much closer, and because they've always voted together, it's why I truly believe they will decide this election, because Harris will need to win all 4 of Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, which I just don't see happening. So, everyone, thank you for watching this analysis on why I think at least Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania will decide the 2024 presidential election. Please ask any questions, comments, or anything down in the comments below, and I'll respond to every single one of them as soon as I can. And please comment any other video ideas you might have, just for reference in the future. Soon I plan to upload one on the vice presidential pick for Harris, perhaps one on the analysis of Trump choosing Vance and others related to the US election, and then expanding more internationally as well. But otherwise, thank you everyone for watching and have a great rest of your day.